everybody, welcome back to our 11.3 notes. We're going to continue where we left off in example 1, part C. We have 4k squared minus 28k plus 49 equals 0, and we're going to solve for k. So using the quadratic formula, I'm going to have k equals the opposite of b, which for us would be negative 28. So the opposite of negative 28 is positive 28, plus or minus the square root of b squared. So negative 28 squared, that would be negative 28 times negative 28, which gives you 784, minus 4 times a times c. So I'm going to have 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is 49. And this is all over 2a. So that would be 2 times my a value, which is 4. From here, let's simplify, okay? So if you type this part into your calculator, aren't you glad you have those right now? You do 784 minus 4 times 4 times 49. Guess what? You get 0, which is kind of fun, okay? So we're going to have 28 plus or minus the square root of 0. And then in the denominator, you've got 2 times 4, which is 8. We can simplify from here. Root of 0 is 0. So we're going to have 28 plus or minus 0 over 8. And 8 plus 0 is 28. 28 minus 0 is also 28. So we're actually only going to get one answer, which is 28 over 8. And we can simplify a little bit because 28 and 8 are both divisible by 4. And you're going to get 7 over 2. So you only get one answer here. Technically, you get it twice because of the plus or minus, but you only get one answer, which is 7/2. All right, last one over here. Kind of run out of space for myself, so I'll box everything else off and try to separate it out. I have x plus 5 times x plus 1 equals 10x, and it looks really nice because it's already factored, but it doesn't equal 0. It equals 10x. So we're going to need to get it into standard form first so that we can actually do our quadratic formula. So to get it in standard form, I'll need to distribute first. So x times x is x squared. X times 1 is 1x or x. 5 times x is 5x. And 5 times 1 is 5. Okay? Then let's get everything on the same side. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 10x from both sides and do a lot of simplifying. So then I'm going to have x squared. With the x's, I have x plus 5x, which would be 6x, minus 10x, which would be minus 4x. Then I have a plus 5 equals 0, and I'm finally in standard form, and I can finally use the quadratic formula. Okay? For the quadratic formula, my a value is going to be 1 because there's 1x squared. My b value will be negative 4. And my c value will be... Let's do it. So x equals, let's see how this goes here. The opposite of b, so the opposite of negative 4 is positive 4. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, so negative 4 times negative 4 would be 16. Minus 4 times a times c. So I'm going to have 4 times 1, which would be 4, times c, which is 5. And so 4 times 5 would be 20. And this is all over 2a, so 2 times 1 is... Then let's simplify from here. Inside the square root, 16 minus 20 is negative 4. So I'm going to have 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 4 all over 2. And having a negative inside of a square root means I'm not going to have a real answer. I'm going to have an imaginary answer. I can take the negative out as an I. So what this will be is 4 plus or minus. So I'm going to have an I from the negative. Then the square root of 4 is 2. I'm going to have 2i. And this is all over 2. I can simplify it a little bit more because everything is divisible by 2. So I'll have 4 divided by 2, which is 2, plus or minus 2i divided by 2 would be 1i, which is I. And that's my answer. So one thing that we notice is that sometimes we get irrational answers. Sometimes we get nice, pretty rational answers that are nice fractions. Sometimes I only got one answer, and sometimes I got imaginary answers. It depended on the problem. And interestingly, you can tell what kind of answers you have by looking at what's underneath the square root. So underneath the square root, just reminding you guys, is the b squared minus 4ac. So if you look at that number right here, you tell, is it going to be a perfect square, where I can take the square root? Is it going to be something other than a perfect square, where I'm going to have an irrational answer? Is it going to be a negative underneath the square root, where I would get an imaginary answer? Or do I have 0, which gave me only one answer? Okay, so that b squared minus 4ac, the thing underneath the square root, actually has a name, and it's called the discriminant. So the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. It's the thing that's underneath the square root in the quadratic formula. And if you look at that b squared minus 4ac, you can tell what kind of answers you're going to get. Okay? So to get two rational solutions, so rational means it can be written as a fraction. That means that we took the square root, it came out nice and pretty and didn't stay underneath the square root, which means I had a perfect square under the square root. Okay? So it's going to be a perfect square. I also know that it's going to be positive because I got a rational solution, not an imaginary solution. For two irrational solutions, what that means is that it's positive again, so I don't have imaginary solutions, but it wasn't a perfect square this time. So not a perfect square, but it's still positive. That will give you two irrational solutions. The only way that we're going to get one rational solution was like what happened in part C, where we had the square root of 0, which gave us a 0. So if your discriminant is exactly 0, you're only going to have one answer. And the last thing is to get imaginary solutions or non-real solutions. That's when your discriminant is negative. So if you look at that b squared minus 4ac, you can tell exactly what kind of answers you're going to get, which is helpful. Let's do some examples of that. So in example 2, what we're going to do is we're going to get it into standard form first, so that we can look at it with the quadratic formula a little bit, and we can look at our discriminant. And then once we get it in standard form, we're going to find our discriminant. We're going to tell what kind of answer we're going to get. And then we know, should I use the quadratic formula or is it going to factor? And we're going to solve. So let's try that. In part A, I've got x over 2 equals x plus 3 over x plus 5. This is nowhere near standard form yet, but let's get it there. First thing I'm going to do is actually cross multiply. So x times x plus 5 would be x squared plus 5x. 2 times x plus 3, 2x plus 6. Then to get it in standard form, I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides and subtract 6 from both sides. So I'm going to have x squared. I'm going to have 5x minus 2x, which is a positive 3x. And nothing minus 6, which would be negative 6, equals 0. Now I'm in standard form. My a is 1, my b is 3, my c is negative 6. So to find the discriminant, what I'm going to do is do b squared minus 4ac. So b squared for me would be 3 squared, which is 9. 4ac would be 4 times a, which is 1, which would be 4, times c, which is negative 6. And 4 times negative 6 would be negative 24. Then 9 minus negative 24 is the same thing as 9 plus positive 24, which is 33. What I know is 33 is positive, so it's going to be a real answer. It's not a perfect square, so I know it's going to be an irrational answer. So what kind of answers am I going to get? I'm going to get 2 irrational answers. Okay, so here's my discriminant, it's 33. Here's the kind of answers I'm going to get, 2 irrational answers, or 2 irrational solutions. Okay, so I know I'm going to use the quadratic formula for this. So to solve for x, we'll have x equals the opposite of b, so the opposite of 3 would be negative 3, plus or minus the square root, and the great news is we already did that part. Your discriminant is the thing underneath the square root. So it's plus or minus the square root of 33, all over 2a, so 2 times 1 would be 2. The square root of 33 doesn't really simplify, that's 3 times 11, so there's nothing that's going to come out of it. We're done, that's our answer. Let's do another one. In part B, we've got 2x plus 6 equals x squared minus 2x plus 1, not quite in standard form yet, but let's get it there. If I subtract 2x from both sides and subtract 6 from both sides, then my left side will be 0. On the right side, I will have x squared. I'm going to have a negative 2x minus 2x, which is negative 4x. I'll have 1 minus 6, which is minus 5. Now I'm in standard form. My a is 1, my b is negative 4, my c is negative 5. Okay? So looking at the discriminant, my discriminant again is b squared minus 4ac. It's the thing underneath the square root. So b squared would be negative 4 squared, which would be positive 16, minus 4ac, so 4 times 1 is 4. Then 4 times c, which is negative 5, so 4 times negative 5 would be negative 20. 16 minus negative 20, that would be the same thing as 16 plus positive 20, which is 36. So my discriminant is 36. 36 is positive, so we're going to have real answers. It's also a perfect square, so we're going to be able to take the square root of it. We're going to have rational answers. We're going to have fractions or maybe even integers, okay? So what kind of answers are you going to get? You're going to get 2 rational solutions. Okay. What that means for us is we can factor it if we want to, okay? So you don't have to use the quadratic formula. If you know that you're going to get rational solutions, take the easy route out and let's factor it. So to get x squared, that would be x times x. To get negative 5, we would have minus 5 and positive 1. 1x plus negative 5x is negative 4x. It's factored. Then from here, x minus 5 is 0, or x plus 1 is 0, which means my answers are positive 5 or negative 1. And we're done. Factoring is fast, if you know how to do it quickly, okay? Let's look at another one. In part C, we have 2x minus 1 squared equals x plus 2. So if you squared 2x minus 1, remember to multiply it by itself. You're going to get 4x squared minus 4x plus 1. Then getting everything in standard form, I'm going to subtract x from both sides and subtract 2 from both sides to get 4x squared minus 5x minus 1 equals 0. I'm going to give you guys a minute to try to solve this on your own. So try it from here, find the discriminant, find the solutions. And I will tell you the answer in 3, 2, 1. For the discriminant, you should get 41. Which means that there are going to be 2 irrational answers. When you solve it, you'll get x is 5 plus or minus the square root of 41 all over 8. Last one, I'm going to let you guys try, and I will tell you the answer in 3, 2, 1.